Hello and welcome. This explainer, compiled by Happy Akande, is all about the power of spiritual endurance. We're going to dive into a really powerful lesson, pulled from this one single, intense moment in an ancient story about a battle that was, well, it was far from over.
Okay, let's just start right here. This one sentence, it just captures everything, doesn't it? A moment of pure, intense exhaustion, but also this incredible, unbelievable resolve. It's really a snapshot of human limitation crashing right into a divine purpose. And trust me, it holds a lesson for anyone who's ever felt completely spent, but knows deep down, the journey isn't over yet.
You know, when we think of the story of Gideon, our minds usually jump to the trumpets and the torches, right? That big, miraculous, kind of crazy victory. But the source material for this analysis argues something really interesting, that the real test of character, the moment that truly defined these men, came in the grueling, painful aftermath.
And that's because this moment right here reveals something the source calls holy tenacity. Think of it like a blueprint for how we can navigate our own challenges, especially when we feel like we have absolutely nothing left in the tank. The fight wasn't over just because the first victory was won. Nope, that's where the real test was just beginning. All right, so let's dig into the first part of this phrase because it's important. What does it really mean to be faint? It's a word we might just read past, but it is packed with so much meaning.
The source is crystal clear on this. These guys, they were not superheroes. Not even close. They were human beings, pushed to their absolute physical and emotional limit. I mean, just imagine it. They were exhausted. They were thirsty. They were emotionally just done. They were literally running on empty.
And their exhaustion, it came from two very different places. First, you have the weight of the warfare. That's the sheer physical and mental toll of the battle itself. But then there was the weariness of the way, the tough journey, crossing a river, all of it. And sometimes, the journey itself is just as draining as the fight.
And this brings us to such a crucial point. Feeling faint, feeling totally exhausted or overwhelmed, it is not a sign that you are failing. It's not a sign you're out of God's will. It's just a part of the process. It's the reality of being a human being on a really difficult mission.
Okay, so let's shift to the second part, because this is where the entire story pivots. This is the moment of decision. It's what turns a story about exhaustion into a story about unbelievable resolve.
Now, what's so fascinating here is that tiny little word that connects these two realities, yet. The source actually calls this word the hinge that separates feeling like a casualty from choosing to be a conqueror. They felt like stopping. Every part of them wanted to stop, but they chose to keep going.
So what fueled that choice? Well, it was two things. First, they had a clear, persistent purpose. They knew the job wasn't done yet, that a partial victory could easily turn into a delayed defeat. And second, there was the power of proximity. They didn't go off alone in their weakness. No, they stuck together, drawing strength from their leader and from each other. That shared purpose gave them a reason, and sticking together gave them the strength.
But this brings up a huge question, right? How does a person who is faint keep pursuing? This isn't just about willpower or a shot of adrenaline. When your personal resources are totally gone, where does that fuel to keep going even come from?
Well, the source explains that their endurance wasn't something they just generated themselves. It came from looking beyond their immediate fatigue. They tapped into two key resources that were completely outside of themselves. So their pursuit, it actually became a physical act of faith. And here they are. These were their resources. They drew strength from a past promise God had already told them they would win, and they were driven by a future hope, this vision of the prize, which was lasting peace for their families, for their people. It was that combination, a past promise and a future hope, that gave them the power to push through their present pain.
So what does all this mean for us, right now, today? Why does this ancient story matter? Well, the source gives us a really clear, practical way to apply this incredible lesson to our own lives, our own battles, and our own moments of total exhaustion.
And this is the takeaway, broken down perfectly. First, you have to reframe your exhaustion. Look, feeling tired is a physical condition. Quitting is a spiritual decision. They are not the same thing. Second, you have to actively guard your yet. That's that moment of choice where your resolve simply has to be stronger than your fatigue. And finally, you just focus on the next small step. When you're overwhelmed, don't worry about the whole mountain ahead. Just ask for strength for the next hour, for the next step.
And the source concludes by pointing us to what it calls the ultimate example of this entire principle. Christ himself was faint, physically broken under the weight of the cross, yet, there's that word again, he pursued the goal. He kept walking toward Calvary.
So the final message here is one of deep encouragement. Because he finished his pursuit, you can finish yours. So we'll leave you with this question from the source material to really think about. Your battle might be different, but that feeling is the same. So, when you are faint, what will your yet be?